Integrate 2024, and you talked about networking. And the session you had was Master Pass Networking for Azure Integration Services. And you mentioned you thought that when going to cloud, you were not going to deal with networking anymore.
I loved it.
And you loved it. But now you're talking at Integrate about networking, and you talk about networking now. But let's
Yeah.
get back a bit. Why this topic? Why did you talk about this topic at Integrate?
I think the biggest reason why I picked this topic was that during the last year, I've been talking about this so much with customers and partners.
Hmm.
This has been the topic number one. Just because it's complex and it's also something that is today something that we as developers or architects needs to be involved with in a much deeper level.
Hmm.
So when we were on prem, we had a server, but everything about network was outside.
Hmm.
Today, when we deploy something into Azure, we need to configure private endpoints. We need to configure firewall settings, yada, 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 on our resources.
Hmm.
Sure, there's a network team that we can assist us, but we're still into doing a lot of that.
Hmm.
And also another thing that I realized during all these talk is that people don't understand. They just click. They have no clue what they're doing. They just in a chain of services going on, there can be jumping back and forth through network, and no one actually understands that they're doing that.
Hmm.
And then when I come in and I'll talk to them, I was like, okay, here you're going out on network, here you're going back in the network, here you're going out on network, and back in again. And they're like, what?
Hmm.
We're not supposed to be able to do that.
Hmm.
Well, you're doing it.
You're doing it.
So just doing that and visualize it, which was part of the presentation. That's why I tried to draw it and visualize it on Integrate,
Hmm.
just because it's a much more complex thing than we want to believe that it is.
Yeah.
That's one of the most things I love about your presentation. Is that's actually putting a picture that we don't really pay attention to in like day-to-day work, because we think, yeah, there is the network and the API management. We call a service here and we call a service there and start trigger a logic app somewhere. We don't really put those things in consideration.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing how you highlight this part, because when things goes wrong, it's most of the time it's just fire, because no one have been considering those things while
Hmm.
building the solution.
Yeah.
But highlighting that quote you made, or the like, well, like when going to the cloud, you shouldn't be. I mean, you kind of said that you now where we're in the cloud, we should not focus on networking anymore, and that was great. But how do you feel like from like that travel, and that you thought that no more network, but now you're only talking about network? Is it more network now?
Yeah, it is, or at least I think the big difference is back 10 years. It's 10 years ago, so it's quite some time now.
Hmm.
When I started this, then network wasn't possible for a lot of services that we use today.
Hmm.
And also, I think from security perspective and from like infrastructure perspective, people wasn't ready. Companies wasn't ready. They just like, okay, cloud, it's something else.
Hmm.
Let's just do whatever you want in it. Don't we do the real stuff down here?
Yeah.
I think that was the approach back then. But
Yeah.
now we have the opposite around. I think now more or less like the cloud is the biggest thing, which means that they need to have control over the cloud.
Hmm.
Uh, and when you put that pressure on someone, like if you put that on a security specialist or whoever is going to take a decision, and you say like, okay, I want secure solutions, you have two options. Two options. Either you go out and say like, okay, I put this in the hands of every developer to do a good thing. Or you say like, okay, hey, I require everything in network because that then I know at least that something, I know something about it. I know some boundaries around it. I can say 9 out of 10 gonna pick the network part because then they have some sort of control over it. Because then someone can screw up, someone can do something bad, and it's not that big of an impact.
Yeah.
But still, we have seen so many breaches anyway because still we are reliant on doing good development and doing good configuration in the cloud. So it's a lot. It's still important, and it gives a, I don't know, a safe security sometimes.
Yeah.
but it's a way of getting a feeling of secure.
Yeah. I mean, but as a developer or a system integration developer, where should we start if you feel like this is something complicated? Like we thought that we shouldn't focus on it, but now we need to focus on it. What's your advice? Where should we start? What's the
I think
first?
that the best thing to start learning, or the biggest thing you need to learn, is private endpoints, because private endpoints is usually what we end up in as an integration developer. That's usually what we do. I think the big one, like an app service environments and those really chunky ones, that will be delivered by some operations area somewhere or so. We have been, at least I have been managing those in the past, but I see less and less of that. I would rather say that today it will be private endpoints and small connections. So understanding the services and understanding like how is a private endpoint connected, the private DNS, how's that working. You don't need to be able to build all of that, but you need to have an understanding of it.
Yeah.